Triple entry journal outlines for research papers and essays in general. It's important that you download and have ready the interactive handouts for this. This is mostly an explanation of how to fill out that handout and do that assignment. So pay attention and follow closely and take notes if you need to and ask questions if you need to. So what is a triple entry journal? You have done this before. Okay, you've got the 3 columns. The first column, you provide the evidence. The second column, you interpret it in your own words. And then in that third column, you explain it, or you have a kind of journal and you do a response. It's usually at least twice as long as the evidence that you've provided. Here is another review. A triple entry journal is a way to take notes in pie paragraph form. So like we learned from the previous essay, you can use this to take notes, and then in the end, you can come up with a topic sentence summarizing that third column to be the topic sentence for your pie paragraph. So as a quick review, what would go in the first column? Well, for this assignment specifically, this is going to be a triple entry journal outline of your research paper. Okay, so you're going to organize all of the research that you have found for your research paper, and you're going to turn them in your research into triple entry journal entries. Okay, so in that first column, you're going to write out the evidence for your research with citation. So the first column, pick one source that you're using and the quotation or the data that you are using from that source, and you're going to put it in the first column. Select passages because they include necessary background for the reader. Perhaps you're going to be writing a paragraph of intent. They show scientific evidence or proof for a claim. They go against your argument, so it's for counter arguments. You select passages because they set up a conversational debate with a key player. This is the quotation for your quote sandwich. Include a lead-in to save time later. What goes in the second column? We all know that that's interpretation. So how would you interpret it? Well, you can ask yourself, what does that quote mean to you? Say it in your own words. If it's data, do the math, right? Do the math for the reader. Explain what's happening in the quote, maybe if it's an event. Say in a way that makes sense to you and your experiences. Describe the author's experience in terms of the passage. Define the issue. What does it mean? Imagine someone doesn't understand the passage and asks you to explain it to them. What would you say? This is the interpretation in your quote sandwich. Don't forget to include the citation, and that citation actually would probably go into the first column. But if it ends up in the second, you can fix that in your body paragraph. But you should keep track of your citation here so it's something you don't have to worry about later. Then there's the third column. What goes in the third column? This is where you write out your response or reaction to the passage. If the student selected the passage because it was important, you would then discuss why it was important to you. Why did you select this passage? Why might it be important? How does it prove your argument or provide some kind of background information for the reader? Maybe it provided a balancing opinion to your position, and you need to explain that. Maybe it provided statistical, empirical, or scientific evidence for your argument, so you need to find a way to now prove your argument with that evidence. Maybe it illustrated an issue. It provided an example. It set up a problem you want to highlight or draw attention to in your argument. Okay? Here is an example triple entry journal paragraph draft, okay, using research. If you should have seen the other lecture already, the one on quotation analysis, the questioning method. Make sure you're watching that one first before you watch this one. But if you have seen that lecture, which is good, that means that this is all a review. You see this article here that I had about here's why robots taking your job is a good thing. I just brought it back for the context of this assignment as well. So as you can see in the very first column, we've got this quotation mark from Bellafiore from his Business Insider article. Then I've got an interpretation of what the Bellafiore is saying. Okay, and then in the third column, you would then explain yourself, right? So what? Who cares? Why does this matter? What essentially is your opinion? Do you think taking, robots taking your jobs is a good thing? Or perhaps you're writing about the death penalty and you might want to ask, well, does it really deter crime? Do victims really find closure after the death of someone who killed their loved one, right? Like, does that really work? Do you really have the evidence for it? And that's where you would explain yourself, is in that third column. You would argue, like, what's your reaction then? What is your point of view? Do you agree, disagree, or a little bit of both? Or you could reveal the purpose, right? How will you use this evidence? What is it for? What's the purpose? What will it prove? Explain, teach, or show. Okay, so you can answer any of these questions, none of these questions, some of these questions, to explain why you're using that evidence. Then when you're done, and we'll go over this again later, but essentially once you've done all of your triple entry journals for all of your sources, you have now got a draft of your paper. Okay, so those first two columns are quote sandwiches, right? Then that third column is your explanation, and the only thing missing is your topic sentence. And to come up with a topic sentence, you would just summarize that third column, because that is your opinion that you would have just explained, right? So you go through it, you go, well, what is my opinion that I'm trying to persuade someone to adopt here? You would summarize that in a sentence, and that would become the draft topic sentence or point for your pie paragraph. Okay, so for homework, you're going to draft your essay using this triple entry journal and quotation analysis strategies that you've learned. So in that third column, you would do what we did in the previous lecture, which is the quotation analysis questioning method lecture, where you pose the opponent's questions to help you come up and generate more explanation and analysis for your argument. Okay, you can do that in the third column in your triple entry journal. So you're going to do a triple entry journal outline for all of your persuasive pie paragraphs using sources. There is a handout that you're going to fill out, and all of these instructions are in there. Okay, so you can go into that handout and you're going to fill that out. Okay, but I'm just explaining it here. You can even put your own personal experience in the first column if that is the evidence you are using. And in fact, I believe that is part of the prompt. You do have to use some personal evidence to support your claim in this essay. So it might be a good idea to make sure at least one of those entries uses your personal experience in the first column, so then you can analyze it to support your point later. If you are writing a background paragraph, you can still make a triple entry journal for the source material you will use for a paragraph of intent. So even if you're not arguing something, you can still use an entry with background information and explain that background information in the third column, and then that would be your paragraph of intent, not a pie paragraph. Don't forget to use the questioning quotation analysis method to help you explain your point of view in the third column. Okay, so if you have, this is a bit technical, but after you look at the handout, I think it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. But if it's not, I'd like you to please ask questions, and you can ask questions in the question form. You can email me, go see a tutor. Tutors are very helpful. But yeah, or you can come to my office hours from 1 to 2 on Wednesdays.